The moon has come, the day is done, the night has covered up the sun. I have stood so often before you to pray, but I wonder, oh Allah, tell me, what did I do today? Did I remember the words of Al-Fatiha? Did I take time to thank you for all that I have? Did I call on you to guide my way? Tell me, what did I do today?
Bismillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah, and welcome back to another episode of Back to Basics. I'm your host, Abdul Azim Saeed, and we have with us in the studio again, we're fortunate enough to have our guest, Dr. Mamdouh Mohamed.
It's my pleasure to be in your episodes all the time.
Barakallah feekum wa jazakumullah khairan. Dr. Mamdouh Mohamed, for those of you who don't know, is a former professor at Johns Hopkins University. He has also worked in over 7 universities across the globe. He is the director of Arrow for consulting and training, and he has traveled extensively, lecturing in issues of both education and da'wah across the entire globe, as far east as Indonesia and as far west as the United States of America. Dr. Mamdouh, in the last few episodes we've discussed different things about how to raise our children, how to discipline them, how to teach them. Today we'd like to look at different strategies and different teaching methods and the diversity that exists and why there should be a diversity. Why can't we just stick to one method, for example? So if you'd like to introduce this and tell us about it.
Thank you for opening this. There is in one episode I mentioned a rule that says never teach in the same way that you'd been taught. Because the context changes and the people change and the whole society change because of, and these quick changes that are happening in the world now requires that a teacher would not use one method. Mm-hmm. There are other psychological factors. One of them is that people are different. Some of them are visual. Yeah. Say they love to see things, they prefer to watch them, and they learn better when they watch. Particularly kids, you can see that.
Yeah,
kids.
Obviously.
And this is where the concept of the Chinese wisdom that says a picture is
worth 1,000 words.
Better than 1,000 words.
Okay.
All right, because a picture, you can see many things in it that perhaps the words cannot convey the exact meaning, or the words are not precise enough to carry what you see.
Okay.
So this is one reason why, you see, and the concept of learning styles and teaching styles. When the teaching style matches a learning style, the learning happens very well. And because you have many students, so they have different, right, learning styles.
Yeah.
One of them is the practical or the touching. Some of them learn very well when they touch things, when they play with them. Some of them learn well when they hear. Yeah. Some of them learn well when they see, and all these things. So that makes it a prerequisite for any teacher to try to use a few number of strategies to match the needs of the students.
Okay.
If we have 3 types of students who have 3 different learning styles, so that means every teacher should use at least 3 teaching methods, teaching styles, in order to match, to get the best kind of learning. Not all people learn by the same way.
Okay.
And the same thing is applicable to your children. When you deal with the children, I remember that my first child used to learn very well by listening, but the second child is different. And the best thing is to look at your hand, and you see that 5 fingers who belong to the same family, and they are different. And that's why we need to match this. And this would make a good match.
Yeah.
So if you differentiate and change and diverse your teaching method, you will meet the needs of most of the students or most of the groups of the students, and this would be a very good class.
Okay, so you're saying a teacher should not only apply different teaching methods overall in their application of their job and so on, but they should also be able to apply those various methods within one classroom, within one class session?
Not necessarily. If possible, that would be the best.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why all these audio-visual aids, yes, and media things that are happening now, video clips, some listening to the tapes, some activities are taking place, so you would meet. It's not fun. I think many parents, when they did not know the root of the problem, and they would enter a class and they would find the teachers, the students are just drawing or just playing or just, they think that this teacher is not qualified. When this was explained to them, they said that, oh, it makes sense, and we've seen the results of our children improve, because the exam itself, not only in the teaching style, but even in the quality of the exam. Not only we focus on the written exam, we focus on the oral exam, we focus on the practical exam. Let's say we're talking about sports. The physical training or the physical class, the PE, how would you measure the success and the advancement of the students? This is something practical. You need to see it by yourself.
And even then, if you look at, if you want to look at physical capabilities of different students genetically have different physical capabilities. So that means if they're running track and field, for example, are you going to judge them all by the same standard as how fast they finish?
No.
What if one student just happens to have very strong legs and can finish within a matter of minutes, and another student takes an hour to finish?
Yes.
It wouldn't be fair to put them in the same exact
Absolutely. That's why we diversify even the sports and the activities that the students do, to be fair to each one of them.
So isn't that a problem then, when we have students who are being, let's say the teacher's taking care of it and the teacher is managing to teach a specific strategy for each group of students who have different learning capabilities, if the school itself doesn't provide specific exams that have different sections to make it more balanced for the different type of students and their learning methods, wouldn't the exam then be biased?
No, it would not be biased.
How so?
Because it's a percentage that's taken for the oral exam, another percentage...
I'm saying if an exam doesn't have necessarily an oral section, doesn't have necessarily a visual section, if the exam is just basically comprehension or something similar to that.
Comprehension, but for what grade? Because even you can see the pictures, matching the pictures with the words, right? This picture matches with this. This refers to comprehension, understanding.
Obviously for younger grades,
it's a very simple way, versus other level of comprehension. I remember this was one of the success stories. I visited one school. Perhaps I told you that I worked as an inspector and evaluator of a school, so I had the honor to visit huge number of classes, more than 3,000 lessons I've seen. That means more than 3,000 teachers. Each one of them is equipped with different methods, so we learn, although we go there to inspect, but we learn from the teachers and from the students more than what we have learned in our practical life. So we've seen, for example, and this was one of the best lessons of comprehension, a teacher who used to teach literature, and there was a story, and she asks the students to read at home, of course, and every day they meet, they just discuss the nature of the main characters. They analyze them. There were 6 main characters in the story, so they meet together to analyze them. So it's very, very, very good analysis. And there was one question only, which was the exam. The question was like this. It was a situation more than a question. The teacher asked one of the students to leave the class and to knock at the door. And the student knocked at the door, and the teacher asked the students, it was a high school class, and the teacher asked the students, who among those 6 main characters in the story is going to open the door first? It was an amazing, I've never seen a question like that. You would never be able, and she said, don't make guessing. Don't say Mr. X.
She wants proof.
She wants a proof. So that Mr. X, because of this event that I read in the story that tells me that he always hastes. A very subtle question. Nobody answered. She said, it's all right. I'll give you another opportunity. You go home, you know the question, now you reread the story, come up with the answer with the proof with it.
So it's not only getting the kids to reread the story, but getting them so curious that they want to reread it.
They want to read, they want to answer the question. And now they went to the story, they read it, they already understood that the first reading was not precise enough.
Exactly.
So they learned how to be precise in reading, how to pay attention to the small details that would give you some hints to answer some difficult questions about this. This was an amazing thing that I have seen. And we, in fact, we publish it under success stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are some of the things that I want the parents to focus on this. If they want their kids to be something, to be graduate as something, and Nobel Prize winner or something like that.
Think outside the box too, not just think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to take them outside the box, to deal with them, to treat their children as very big adults.
Yeah.
They understand that they know the details, and sometimes they know more than the adults know. So, yes.
Okay, then Jazakallah khairan. I would like to go back to the other point about students who require different needs. And we mentioned this briefly, but we expanded a bit upon it. If students require different needs in the classroom, and you mentioned also you have children, they have different needs for learning at home and so on, how is it possible for a teacher to apply these different needs in a school environment where the administration itself doesn't work with them for that focus?
One of the things is that workshops, attending workshops, and the administration of the school or the leadership of the school should be very open-minded. We sent you to attend a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
We paid a lot of money to invest in you. And when you attend the workshop 1, 2, 3 days and come back, you need to give us a lecture of what was in the workshop. So whatever you've got, right, we need to take it. We need to learn from it. And in this way, we create a whole culture of learning. The teachers are eager to learn. Mm-hmm. The students are eager to learn. The leadership of the school are eager to learn. And in this way, there is a room for us to communicate.
So it really has to be that everybody is open-minded enough. The student, obviously, the teacher, obviously, and even the school itself has to be open-minded to change and modify and benefit from new methods.
And we should understand that all the world is competing. So either to compete or to die.
Jazakallah khair. Inshallah, we'll continue right after this break, though. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. Welcome to another live edition of Hada Tonight. This program provides some of the latest news and information from around the Muslim world, and also discussions about topics that are important for Muslim life.
Brothers and sisters, the Islamic perspective on divorce, it's an outlet which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made halal for any relationship that has gone sour or an abusive relationship. But this principle of divorce has its rules and has its procedures.
For our first news item for the news segment tonight, we're going to go to the United States, the state of Kansas, the Muslim community there in the United States, the state of Kansas. The city is Kansas City.
Talk is communication. In order to communicate, you have to make sure that exactly you tell or you told the other or the partner the real thing about your side.
Tonight we're going to talk about, inshallah, Abdullah ibn Abbas. And what I wanted to start off with, you know, we all know that he was very young when the Prophet ﷺ passed away. So let's start from the beginning, from his youth.
Time is very important and precious. Many of us in our youth and the Muslim Ummah doesn't know the value of time. And even if we think we know, sometimes we face difficulty and challenges understanding and managing your schedule on a daily basis.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and welcome back to the program, Back to Basics, with our special guest, Dr. Mamdouh Mohamed. Dr. Mamdouh, right before the break we were discussing the different variations and the different styles and strategies that we can use to apply as teachers or as parents for our students to benefit. And we mentioned briefly, how do we deal when the whole system doesn't want to work together, because really it has to come from the whole system.
Yeah, and that's why the issue, the whole concept of education is based on a system. We're no longer talking about individuals, an outstanding principal, few good teachers. No, we're talking about a whole system, and the whole system should work as one system. The word system itself implies that it should work together. And that's why the teacher who got some training now is giving the same training to the other teachers and to the principal. We succeeded, if we do this, we succeeded to create a learning culture, which is very important. Everybody is eager to learn, not just the students, the leadership and the teachers and the administrators. Everybody wants to learn, to see what's happening, because the whole world now is competing. The schools in Korea, that in these last 2 years, they advanced to a very high level, the top of the world. And they made a big change. We used to look to the West in the past, to Europe and the USA and Canada. Now the whole world is looking to the East, to divert. Why? Because they are competing and they are producing some of the techniques and strategies that are more effective, and the outcome, which is their quality of their students, are doing much better than the quality of the students across the globe. This means that if we address the needs of every student, which is not an easy job.
No.
Perhaps this is the most difficult job, particularly in the first few months or first few years, until the teachers become expert. The minimum requirement now, we imagine that the teacher now who is standing in front of one class, a number of students, we imagine that he is divided into 3 sub-teachers.
Yes.
A teacher for the mainstream students, a teacher for the advanced and smart students, a teacher for the low achievers. He has to prepare, or she has to prepare and plan her lesson according to at least 3 levels.
And even within those 3 levels, there's different learning methodologies, correct?
That's why we do the chain, of course. But now we are addressing those students. The low achievers should have level, should be addressed in a lower level than others. That's why when we design a task, when we design an activity, we should have 3 levels. It can be 1 paper, but it has 3 levels. It can be 20 questions, but there are 3 levels. Students in Group A, I expect them to answer questions from 1 to 7. Students from Group B, I expect them to answer questions from 8 to 10. Students from Group C, I expect them to answer the last 5 questions. I designed the questions to match each group. So I would tell them to sit together, and I ask them to answer these number of questions that match their needs. They don't know that I designed them in that way, but I did them, and that's why even in
you design the questions for each group according to their abilities, without them knowing, so that they don't feel they don't feel different about it.
Absolutely. So in this way, we expect a teacher who uses different methods, who uses different techniques, who differentiates in the questions, in the teaching, in the assignments and homework, and even in the evaluation. Even in the evaluation, I evaluate them differently or with different degrees of complexity in the questions that they are. In this way, they expect you to be a master teacher who consists of 3 teachers.
And also to be able to do it subtly so as your students are not aware. So you're a master teacher at this point.
Absolutely. This is something good.
Okay, so then how do we, because I agree 100% that methods and teaching methods have to change over time because society, culture, norms change. For example, today people are much have much less attention spans, shorter attention spans, because they're living in an age, especially children today, as you see them with their cell phones, and not a moment goes by where their face is not glued to the screen. And so you as a teacher, you have to be able to compete with that constant attention grab of notifications popping up, this game, this...
grab the attention of.
So the way to teach them has to change from how we were taught when we were younger.
You see that in most classes of kindergarten or nursery even, you find the teachers are using puppets and using all these things to attract the attention. Using the issue of songs and anashid and all these things to move even from one activity into another. And just to, because of the attention, this short attention span, you have to change the activity that you are doing every 5 to 10 minutes.
So it's become...
If you enter a class as a parent or as an inspector and you want to evaluate the quality of the teacher, if you don't see the change of activity after 5 or 10 minutes, you know that the teacher lacks some skills.
So would you say then it's harder to be a teacher today than it was, let's say, 60 years ago?
It requires more skills.
More skills.
We said that the teacher in the past was labeled as
teacher-centered.
The queen and the king.
Yeah.
He is the king of the whole class. This is not the case. There is no longer, people will tell him, students, we are the king, not just you.
I mean, though, even beyond the aspect of the past having more teacher-centered approach and today having a more student-centered approach is the norm, I mean that simply because the students are no longer attracted to teaching methods of past, because writing something on the board is not as attractive as it used to be when someone has, you know, the latest game in their pocket, or they go home to the latest cartoon. I mean, even television, let's say, even if we don't want to talk about before television, people had much higher attention spans. Television was first black and white, so it didn't even have color. So even then, people were not as drawn to it.
You're absolutely right. But also, I want you to observe this. I want every parent to do this. If you watch something on the TV, it's almost impossible for you to focus on one actor for 10 minutes. Even he is the best actor in the world. And that's why you'll find 3 or 4 cameras or even 200 cameras in one studio that are moving from here to here, 1 second on the screen and 3 seconds on the face of the character and 4 seconds on... Yes, these changes are very important to keep your
viewer's attention.
Otherwise, you will lose it. So how about the young ones? The young ones need more change. That's why it's very difficult to teach the KG. The best teachers are the ones who teach at KG.
Dr. Mamdouh, we discussed extensively how teachers and administrations can improve the standard of which their students learn and effectively target each student according to their needs. What happens when they avoid this responsibility and the students themselves realize this need and they don't know how to approach their schools or their teachers? How can they approach them?
Most of the school focus on the issue of relationship, and they follow, if not, I hope they do, they follow the policy of open door policy. And they open their doors to receive the students, and they ask the students to come and explain their special needs so that they can get better education. So you will find in good schools, outstanding schools, students are visiting teachers in their rooms and telling them their needs. The other way, which is much better than this, is that we ask teachers to engage students in evaluating them. So students would be evaluating the teacher, teachers are writing the evaluation, or the school leadership is writing the evaluation, which is generalized in all classes, and the students write their opinion. For example, one of the issues, one of the questions that's written in this evaluation form is which methods or which strategy or which technique make you learn better.
Or they could even show the technique and say,
of course, they write the techniques,
which do you approve?
5 or 6 options or whatever. And the students select this one. And in this way, the teacher knows that a group of students or those particular students or the majority of the students know or want to be taught in this method. And this way, they are the source of giving feedback to the teacher. We prefer to be taught in this way. So the teacher would modify accordingly modify his methods and strategies accordingly to meet their needs. Of course,
but this still requires the teacher themselves to make the initiative. If the teacher is going to be the one...
Not necessarily, we suppose, but if you learn from this situation, you would always try to use the same methodology in order that you would know your students better.
We could also say that parents could approach the schools.
This is exactly what we say.
Yeah.
We make surveys for the parents themselves.
I've always...
and they would say that my child, particularly when the children are young, they say that my child learns better if, and they give the conditions.
Yeah.
And in this way, we find the whole school is changing. Very dynamic school. Yeah.
I would say, like you mentioned, Barakallahu Feekum, that it really is up to the relationships to guide the education system.
Yes, you're right.
And
we have to develop this relationship.
And especially, I find, especially when it comes to private schools, parents need to involve themselves more in the education of their children.
In one of the schools that I visited and we inspected, it was something very good. The school leadership, when we visited the school, they brought parents and they brought students, one student from each class, and they were the ones who are feeding us about, who are answering our questions. So the parents now were representing the whole school. The principal was not there, he was there, but he was not speaking.
MashaAllah.
So the parents were talking and said, these are very high quality schools. Yeah.
And these are high quality parents who are involving themselves like this.
Absolutely, yeah.
With that,
because they are good quality or high quality because the school prepared them to reach this level.
so then the school also has to work with the parents to help them to understand what their role is in helping this.
That's why they have consistent PTA.
Yeah. With that said, unfortunately we have run out of time, so we're going to have to end. Jazakumullah khair as always for joining us.
Inshallah.
Barakallah feekum.
Barakallah feekum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Oh, the moon has come, the day is done, the night has covered up the sun. I have stood so often before you to pray, but I wonder, Allah, tell me, what did I do today? Did I remember the words of Al-Fatiha? Did I take time to thank you for all that I have? Did I call on you to guide my way? Tell me, what did I do today? I have whispered to you as I made ruku, Subhana Rabbi Aladi. But was my faith bright or grey? Oh Allah, tell me.